This is an instructional video on SA Publisher, System Architect's publishing tool. SA Publisher generates a website of the architecture based on the running of reports that you as a user specify. You can create these reports or use some of the pre-built reports that we provide with SA Publisher. At the back end, a directory is generated, and within that directory, you have HTML pages, SVG files, and style sheets, which produce a website of the architecture in terms of diagrams and definitions that you can navigate. You can have reports that contain sub-reports, so you can get a very consolidated set of information. For example, here, this is for a UML class definition, wherein you're getting description and stereotype and package and reference documents as part of the report. And then a sub-report is tucked in for the class attributes and their related things. And then another sub-report is tucked in for the class methods and their related things. And then another report, a sub-report, is tucked in for symbols contained in diagrams, or the definitions are represented by symbols contained in diagrams. You know what diagrams this customer definition appears in. So this is 3 sub-reports within a main report. And we'll show you how to do that in a little bit. And so the website folder contains HTML pages. The main page is default.htm. That's the one that you open to open up this architecture website. And then you have SVG files for the diagrams that you can zoom in and out of. And then you have style sheets, CSS, images, JavaScript, etc. So this is the contents of the folder that you generate the website to. You can zip this up and email it to someone if it's not too big, or give it to somebody somehow, and they can open it. Or you can put it on a web server and have everyone, millions of people, infinite people, view the architecture at no charge. You just need the one license of SA Publisher. So again, your output directory has HTML, SVG, and XML files. And so the way Publisher works, when you run Publisher, you open up an XML template file. That template file has reports specified and various other setup properties specified in it to generate the website. So let's take a look at these tabs of SA Publisher's user interface. Again, when you generate the website, you get a message that says what was generated, and you can schedule Publisher to generate at certain times of day or during the week or what have you. When Publisher runs, it is running against an encyclopedia, and so everyone should be off it because it'll tie things up as it grabs stuff and generates. It's like a power user going in and grabbing stuff. So you should have people off of System Architect. And then also, actually, SA Publisher, when it runs, it opens SA System Architect with an encyclopedia open, or workspace in an encyclopedia, and holds it there, so you can't access System Architect when Publisher's running. So we have some exercises in this PowerPoint, but we're not going to do them here. We're going to run a little demo in a minute here as I go through these. After I go through these slides, let's take a look at the tabs here of SA Publisher. So the first tab, Specify Reports, is where you specify your starting reports, the reports that are going to run one after another here to generate the website. And so they'll run, and if they encounter things in the running of the report, they will get that and run a report for whatever they encounter. So you might start with, a definition type here, or even a diagram type, and it runs through, finds the symbols on the diagram, gets their definitions, various definition types, and then maybe gets related definitions depending on what reports that you have specified on the following tabs. But in general, you may have one starting report, you may have many starting reports, but it'll go through as it kind of taking a journey. Each report takes a journey through the architecture and grabs stuff. The Class Defaults tab is, if it hits stuff during the running of the report, it wants to do something with what it hits. Like it hits a definition for, say, a business process. Well, what does it do for that? Well, it has to have a report to run. So on the default, class defaults, meaning System Architect comes with three classes of things: diagrams, symbols, and definitions. Those are the three main classes of things in System Architect. And so here's where you specify the bottom line default report for anything that SA hits. And it's clear if we look at type defaults. Type defaults is where you specify a report for a particular type of definition or diagram. So for example, here we're seeing an action state. It runs, there's a report, and it'll get particular things for an action state. The same thing here: action transition, activity model, and various other. None of these others actually have a report specified for them. So if it hits this report, if this SA publish hits application, there's no report for application here yet listed. So what it'll do is it'll grab the default definition report. And that default definition report is a really base report that has a generation of properties that every definition has, like description, reference documents, the bottom line of what properties of what every definition has. So there's something to generate. And so that's the way this works. It starts with the specify reports tab, and then as it's going through, if it hits a definition, it runs the report that you have specified for it. And then if there is none specified, it'll go back and get that class default and run this, right? And then finally, you have alternate reports. This is extra credit stuff. And to best explain this is through an example. If I have a need for different kind of report to run for a definition type based on how somebody accesses it, I can use alternate reports. So in this case, this is an entity relation diagram with entities on it. And when I feel that if my users are going to navigate to this diagram and click on this, they want a report that's going to have the entity and all its attributes and various other properties, very condensed. This is a sub-report and all of that. It's very data heavy. But if I have a business process report definition and somebody accesses it through going maybe through a BPMN diagram, business process diagram, and clicks on it, and then it says here related entities. If somebody clicks there, I may want a different report, lighter, just the business information about that entity. So it's the same definition, entity, but two different reports running for it based on how I navigate in the output. And that's what that tab enables you to do: create alternate reports for things based on how they're navigated. And then we look at the main setup tab, and on this tab you can specify, of course, the output directory. If you're publishing to a website, you can specify that here. You're using System Architect's publisher output on a Windows server, not Linux. Windows server is supported. And in here, you can specify default style sheets. We're going to take a look at that in a little bit, but they're all out in the program data, Unicom Systems, SA Publisher directory, all of the SA Publisher stuff. And then you also have here, as SA Publisher runs, where it's going to grab its style sheets from. Send comments to. This will put out a little thing on the output pages, a little email button, so that if someone could email automatically someone about a particular page in the output and say, hey, maybe there's something needs to be done on this page, or this diagram is missing something, what have you. Here's where you can specify a logo file for your own output, and then the logo would link to a particular website. Various other options in here. This is an interesting one: compressing the SVG. So you can toggle to compress the SVG so it's lighter. The output is lighter in terms of memory of the files, the size. But if you compress the SVG, then that draws a security concern that is addressed by the web server. So you have to have a web server specified to have the compress SVG toggled on. If you leave it off, you'll generate SVG that is uncompressed, a little bigger, but you'll be able to open the website on your desktop. If the SVG is compressed, then if you have this toggled on and generate the website, and you have this folder and you try to open it on your desktop, you won't see the SVG. It won't appear. Diagrams won't appear. So this is great if you're testing locally, or if you're emailing the information to somebody. But if you want to compress the SVG, you need to go through a web server. So that's basically it for the user interface. Again, this is the logic of how things work, that those starting reports on that first tab run one after another in that first tab that you have listed. And then they may kick off reports as they encounter things, a report for each definition type. And if not, they use the default report for a definition type or a diagram type, etc. Now, you build reports for SA Publisher using System Architect. And so a couple of things about it, and we provide a whole bunch of reports already made for SA Publisher in the SA Publisher folder, which you access through the user interface. But a couple of things. An SA Publisher report, which this is a report in System Architect, right? It's a SQL query where you're selecting and you're doing partials and select where, join, etc. You can see here a report format 4. That means HTML versus another number, which would be for grid. And then also you in here, the style, the output directory and style sheets are not specified in Publisher. They're not specified in the report. They're specified via Publisher, I should say. So that's what this means. And we're going to show you that in a minute. And then the main report needs something in it called where identity equal SWG_DDID. That tells Publisher to generate a page, a unique page for every definition instance that's generated. And there's a particular place to put that before the first join in the report or after the last where statement where there's no join. Well, we take care of that for you. So this is, if you built a report in System Architect, you could go in and manually edit it after the fact to say, hey, the report format is 4, and then also get rid of your output file because SA Publisher overrides it, and get rid of your style sheet that you're using, and then also add the SWG_DDID command down here. It seems like a lot. This is the way you used to do it. We have a user interface for that now, and I'll show you that in a minute. And then a sub-report doesn't need an SWG_DDID line because it's a sub-report. So that's something to bear in mind. So let's take a look at what this looks like in SA Publisher and System Architect. SA Publisher comes with a bunch of report files, each containing reports that you use and select in the SA Publisher GUI user interface. They are stored in C Program Data, Unicom Systems, SA Publisher reports. And so if you want to add reports, you would add it in a report file and add that report file into this directory. You create those reports or report file in System Architect, make the reports ready for Publisher, and put them into this directory. Then SA Publisher will see them. Normally, System Architect reports are provided, I'd say System Architect reports in general are provided in the installation directory of SA, program files, Unicom Systems, System Architect Suite, System Architect reports. And so all of these RPT files are for use with System Architect. So in System Architect's reporting engine, I can access them and select them and open up an RPT file, and there'll be a bunch of reports in here like this for DODAP2. So I've created my own new report file here. At this point, it is located in my install directory for System Architect in the reports directory. And I have a number of reports here. So let's take a look at this one. This and this I've made for System Architect. This one here is to get a system definition in DODAP2, get its description, related activities, locations, etc. and I generate it to grid. It's a normal report. I get the grid output, and the nice thing about the grid, of course, you can double click on any cell, open it up, that whatever it is, save it to Excel. Okay. So notice it's made for grid up here. This report here is the same report, but it's for HTML. And so for HTML, I have to specify an output file, a directory, and an output file name, HTML, and then choose a style sheet. I use HTML tables. This is the same report. So if I generate that, I get this kind of output. Okay, so now if I want for SA Publisher, the thing about SA Publisher is that if we look at this report for grid and text edit it, you'll see that it has an output file, it has a style sheet, it's a report format 20, that's grid. This HTML version of it is report format 4, HTML. It's got an output file and a style sheet. We don't want these for publisher. They will confuse publisher. Publisher overrides them. So here is a report, same report, and in this case, I've made it for SA Publisher. As soon as I make it for SA Publisher, a couple of things happen. One is that it is changed so that it is report format 4, HTML, and then the output file and style sheet lines are removed. The other thing that happens to it is that it automatically has this identity equal SWG DDID, which is used in Publisher to output a specific page for each report of a system. And so if we looked at that in text edit mode, SA knows exactly where to put that identity equal SWG DDID file. So that's what I would do. I would create the report, test it with maybe to grid or HTML, don't matter, and then change it so that it is a publisher report, delete these two, save this report file, and then move this report file into that directory, and it will be available for a system report in SA Publishing. Now, this is a capabilities, their activities, and their systems. And again, to grid, if I run that, I get a nice grid output, which has capabilities and the activities in their systems. And same thing to HTML, and that's fine. So this report walks several levels: capability, comprises definitions, activity part of capability, comprises definitions, activity, uses definitions, system. That's what this report does. Now, let's say as we are walking this, I want to, so I go from capability to activity part of capability to activity to system. But then at the activity level, I want to branch off and get a separate report just for activity that gets its related things, right? So I would build a sub-report and tuck it in. And so what you do, so here is a sub-report for activity where it starts with activity name and then gets activity performed by performer and gets the conditions and rules under which this activity is performed by a performer. So that's kind of walking a whole different path. And I want to tuck that in. So what I do is I go over, I save, if you create a sub-report, you save the report file. You probably want to put sub-report on the front end and then go over to the report that you want to tuck it in and go to the level where you want to tuck it in, click sub-reports and choose that report, which is in this case, activity to grid, add it, and now click OK, save the report file, and you can now run it. And you'll see here that it is running this report, a capability activity system, and then gets, for the activity, its additional stuff. And so you might want to, you can move these things over so the conditions and rules, etc. And then the system that does this capability. But also then you have activity twice here. So if you're using to grid, you might want to, on the subreport to grid, you might not to want to have its name. You don't need the name twice. So you remove that and then select OK. So you're not going to get the activity name twice. Save the report file, run this again, right? And now you have capability activity. Let's move system over here. So you have capability activity performed by performer, conditions, rules, performer, and then the system that does it. So that's how you work the subreports in. Publisher is a little different because it puts the subreport underneath. So you may want the activity name still. You can play with that. Same thing here would be for the HTML. I would just tuck that in, go into the activity level and tuck in that subreport. This is subreport activity to HTML, tuck it in, and then save the report file and generate that. Again, here in this, it doesn't look so great here, but it is tucked in. So a capability, activity, system, and then you have the activity name again, so you know what it's a fashion to. But in Publisher, it'll publish below it, so it may work out without removing the name. Again, you can play with that. So any case, that's how you deal with subreports. Now, there's a little caveat here in the user interface for building reports for SA Publisher. So I want to do the same thing here. I've got this subreport activity, and I've made this for SA Publisher subreport, which is one of the choices. And it's the same report as before. It gets activity performed by performer. And then if I go to this main report, which is an SA Publisher report, I want to tuck in the other report. I go to this level, which is the activity level, and I want to choose the subreport, which is here, and I add it, and I say OK. The only thing is, this is not made to do that yet. This is on our list of enhancements to be able to do this with a SA Publisher subreport. So you really can't save this at this point. You can consider it a bug or an enhancement, but we haven't made that. So what you have to do is don't do that, and because you won't be able to save it. And so what you want to do is just let's take a look at the subreport first. Notice that this has report format 4. There's no style sheet. There's no output file. It doesn't have an SWG line, which it's not supposed to. As subreports and Publisher you don't want that. So this is ready to go, this report for Publisher. But what you want to do is go into here and text edit this. So let's just take a look here first for the HTML one. Notice this one puts the subreport here, right? And so this tells you where to do it. It's after the first order by. So you're going at the activity level after order by name, you're placing that there. So you'd want to do it here as well. Text edit this, and when it hits activity after order by, put that report in here. There's no HTML on it. The name of it is this. So that's how you do it. You just have to do that extra little step here. It doesn't save in the dialog. But now this report is ready to go for SA Publisher with its subreport. Having done that, I would want to delete this grid report, delete this HTML report, these two as well, and then these two as well. And now I've got a report file with a system report and a capabilities report, which gets a subreport. And I'll save this report file. And I'm going to save it out to my desktop, or actually, no, let me just go out straight to where we said it should go, which is out in C, Program Data. Here it is, Unicom Systems, SA Publisher, Reports. And I'll call this SA Pub example. All right, so that's how you're creating the reports in System Architect for use with SA Publisher. Now, if we go out to SA Publisher, I'm going to create a brand new template file here, and I'm going to call it, let's just call it DODAF example here. And you can see the folder where the SA reports are located, program data, SA Publisher reports. This is where my XML file is going to be located. And I open up the SA Publisher user interface. And in here, now we're going to talk about these tabs as we have in the PowerPoint. The setup tab, where you're setting up where your output is going to be. I'm going to specify that this is put out into my documents, make a new folder out there, DODAF example. And then if I'm publishing to a website, web server, I would specify it here. I'm going to say this is going to be uncompressed, so I can open it up on my desktop. Here's the places where the style sheets are. We'll go over that in a minute. We'll come back to this page, but a lot of options here. And I want to start this. I'm going to start with the specify reports page, where we always specify the starting reports. But I'm going to do something I typically do, which is go over to generic reports file and grab a diagram report or 2 or 3, and then specify the starting diagram. So let's go out and get a, say a CV1 vision, and then a style sheet for that, diagrams, and then do it again here, report start criteria. It defaults to the highest alphabetically, AV1, but I'm going to get, say, a CV2, and then a style sheet for it, diagrams, and then I'm going to get report start criteria. Let's go get an SV1, and report start criteria style sheet is diagrams. And maybe I'll get one more diagram here, which will be, let's go get an OV5. The activity model, that's the OV5B. I'll use that. And again, style sheet, use diagrams. That's the way I typically build out a report. You can come down here and select all of the different diagram types for DODAF and get them all in here. Let's add one more diagram report. We can get other diagram types like the Explorer diagram. Style sheet, diagrams. Okay, now we go to class defaults. And so, again, this is the bottom line default reports that will run for any definition where we have not specified a specific report and the type defaults. So class defaults, again, we'll go to those generic reports and get definition for definitions and choose a style sheet, say just a generic definition. And then for diagrams, choose the diagram report and choose a style sheet, etc. I chose diagrams there, right? Yes, okay. And then the type defaults, this is where we'll go get our specific reports. And we have a whole bunch that are provided with System Architect. So here's where we'd want to get our report file that we just created, which was the SA pub example. And we'll see those 3 reports that we built. And so we can apply them. So to a system, here we'll drag our system report and the style sheet. I'll just use generic definition. And then capabilities. We'll drag our capability report. All right, so we could try generic definition. We can try some of the other report output files, but style sheets. So but that's basically it. That's creation of a SA publisher XML template file. And then in here, we can talk about how you can customize some of this. This is the send comments to, which appears on the output page in the upper right-hand corner. Somebody can send an email for that page. And you get a link to that particular page in the email, so somebody can comment on a page, etc., etc. Logo links to. So this is all self-describing, and so we can run this, and it'll tell you you haven't saved it, so it'll save it for you. When the SA Publisher run is finished, you get a message of the run, and our report has some issues to it. I'm going to show you what this is. The report empty capabilities, activities, and their systems. So we navigate to our output and we go to the default.htm page, open it up, and we see diagrams that we chose, and then also the definitions that were found during the running of the reports, those start reports. If we look at a system definition, we get the information that we wanted. So that's our report for a system. Description, related activities, related locations. Now, that error that we saw is because our report for capabilities ended up being empty for a number of capabilities, empty report page. That was what that bug was. And the reason for that is that the report goes from capability to activity to system and outputs if it hits, if a capability is related to an activity and that activity is related to a system, you get output. But any capability that either A is not related to an activity or B, the activity is not related to a system, you get no output. And so to fix that, and some of these capabilities, if we look around, we'll probably find some that do have the full string of relationships, and you'll get some output. You'd have to come around in here and try some of these. You might find one. But let's go fix the report instead. To understand what happened to our output on that capability report, I've recreated one to grid. And that is, again, a report that goes from capability to activity part of capability to activity to system. And if I generate that report, we see that I get output. But the thing is, every one of these capabilities has a system related, an activity related to it, and the activity has a system related to it. What you can do to a report is go to any level. We're going to go to the top level here and make it partial. So when we find capabilities, whether or not they're related to an activity, we'll get output. And then you get this kind of thing where we see some capabilities have no activities and you might have, here's one with an activity with no system. And so you're going to get every capability output for it. So that, now this is to grid. And so if I looked at that in the text edit mode, I have that partial command right here underneath the first select. And so I would want to change my SA Publisher report in text edit mode right here. And I should be okay now. I'll delete this grid report. So I have 3 publisher reports. Save that report file out to that directory and regenerate. So back in SA Publisher, we regenerate. And this time we have no errors. And if we check the output, we see we get reports for capabilities and the sub-reports and for systems, etc. So that is a little bit of building reports for SA Publisher and publishing. So to edit the output in terms of style sheets beyond what we provide, you'll be looking at the files in the Program Data Unicom Systems SA Publisher directory. In the root folder of that directory, there are a few bitmap files used for the home page, as well as XSL files used for SVG generation, which becomes the diagrams. The only important file in the root directory for customization is default.html, which is used as the starting page for any output, and is also slightly edited during generation to include some images and text as you've configured it in the SA Publisher UI that we looked at. The common folder includes all of the output that's common to every publisher generation. It's always included with SA Publisher output as is. So that in there you'll find image files, CSS files, JavaScript files that apply to all the publisher output. And these files in the common folder can be edited or new files added, and those changes would apply to the publisher output. The CSS folder contains a number of example style sheets for output, and you can choose one of these styles on the Setup tab of SA Publisher UI. There's an option called Input Folder for Website. You can try these out, and you can add your own folder and style sheets here as well, and choose that in the Setup tab. And then, of course, there's the reports folder that we've looked at, which contains all of the reports made for SA Publisher. Then there's the style sheets folder, which we've used some of these already. These are the style sheets that you're using for definitions and diagrams and symbols. And you can edit these, and then also you can add your own. And then there is the templates folder, which contains a number of XML templates, which include reports chosen and style sheets for different frameworks. So we created our own template in this example. So that's it for now on SA Publisher. And if you have any questions, let us know. Thank you. Thanks for watching.